Will you take a message for me to Mr. Kramer? Tell him that Nero Wolfe pronounces him to be a prince of witlings and an unspeakable ass. Phooey!
This is I Don't Even Own a Television, a Nero Wolfe mystery, The Rubber Band.
2, 1, 2, 3.
There are books that are good, there are books that are bad. There's some books so fucking awful you wish you never had read them at all. Cause a novel can ruin your life. Hey buddy, I don't even own a television.
All right, welcome to I Don't Even Own a Television. It's a podcast about bad books. I am JW, no clever nickname, Friedman.
And I am Chris Collision, the master of detection. Screw you, Rex Stout. I'm taking your title straight off the cover of your book and affixing it to my own chest. Ha ha.
Ooh, you really got him there.
Yeah, you can read about this in the next book, The Case of the Purloined Tagline.
And, so this time around we're talking about a mystery novel from 1936. It's part of the Nero Wolfe series, which as near as I can tell is either satire of or just a complete ripoff of Agatha Christie's Poirot series.
We're now going to pause the episode so Jay and I can have the long-awaited fist fight and emotional meltdown out front of the building.
I looked it up. The first one of these was released 8 years after the first Poirot. It's very important to note that Nero Wolfe is also born outside of the country that he operates in. He's a bit of a dandy, but he's a largish fellow.
Yeah.
He has sophisticated tastes in food and hobbies. We're guided through the story by a kind of everyman character who is not Hastings, but is Archie Goodwin. He's our good-natured narrator. He's the assistant of Nero Wolfe. And then they have working for them kind of a carefree secretary type named Fritz. I don't think we get his last name, who is basically Mrs. Lemon.
He's really the cook.
Oh, he's the cook. Okay, yeah. So that's a little different, but yeah, I had a really hard time not reading all of Nero Wolfe's lines in Poirot's voice, which, by the way, if you're going to read this book, I recommend doing.
Okay. I think that is actually fair, and look out for this month's audiobook version, which will just be that. This month's bonus episode, which will just be that. It'll just be Jay reading all of Nero Wolfe's lines in his Hercule Poirot voice.
I'm not very good at it. I'm bad at accents. I'm trying to find a good line here, but just to find the types of things that he says, he has a very Poirot kind of way of saying things as well.
He's a pompous jerk, but not.
Yes, exactly.
Not to get too far ahead of ourselves, but Jay, three things. First off, how dare you? Second off, neither Rex Stout nor I have ever heard of Agatha Christie, nor will we. Number three, and how dare you? Number 3.5. How could this possibly be a ripoff of Hercule Poirot when it's clearly your math is just wrong, because this is clearly not Moriarty, Mycroft Holmes, but if instead of a Watson he had a Raymond Chandler wisecracking private eye.
I could see that.
To me,
Hastings does a lot of wisecracking. I'm just saying.
Nobody wisecracks more than Archie Goodwin. In fact, one of my favorite things about it is how often Archie Goodwin, who is our humble narrator, doesn't recount the dialogue to us, but just says, I wisecracked at him for 15 minutes. And you're like, oh my God, you're the most intolerable person of all time.
But, I mean, like I said, I'm willing to give this a pass and say that this could be satire. It could be intentional homage.
This is none of those. This is just straight up. Like, Rex Stout was president of the American Mystery Writers Association. Rex Stout was a really big deal. These used to be famous. So I basically picked this and pitched it because I thought it would be nice to do something you'd like for a change.
I mean, I enjoy reading it to an extent, but we'll get back to this.
Well, my text messages tell a different tale, my friend.
I enjoyed reading this halfway through the second time reading it when I finally figured out what the fuck was going on. Because this is a book that...
He's got you there.
As you mentioned earlier, it's full of wisecracks. And it's narrated by a wisecracker. And so it has a prose style that really kind of distracts you from the plot. Mm-hmm. So unless you're paying very, very close attention as you read, it's really easy to lose track of the narrative threads because there's like 3 jokes on every page.
I think that's really true. I think... file this one under best laid plans going awry, because I had this episode completely mapped out in my head. To let y'all into the kitchen a little bit, we've got some time pressures here. You know, we're having to work kind of fast and like get a lot of stuff done. So I was like, all right, what would be great is just a classic mystery, and then Jay can explain the plot to me, and we'll have like a corking good time, and everybody will go home happy. And then like you start getting halfway through it, and you're texting me like, I can't make head or tail of this plot. It's incomprehensible. And I was like, no, my empire of dirt.
I literally have a whiteboard that we recently purchased for the show, you know, to keep track of things we want to mention. But this time around,
and to keep track of how cool we are.
This time around, it's become literally like one of those CSI murder boards where I just have names and arrows connecting them, and like this person owed this person money, and this person murdered this person out of retaliation for a thing that they thought this person's father did to this person, and it's intense.
When I was about 11 years old, I read my first H.P. Lovecraft short story. And so at the time, I was mostly occupying my life with rolling up a lot of role-playing game characters that I would never play because I didn't have any friends. And they were superhero role-playing games. And I rolled up a character who had drawn a pattern with ballpoint pen that was so unsettling that to look upon it was to be driven mad.
That's kind of, yeah.
And when I walked in here, that's the first time I'd thought about that character in a long time.
Yeah, it's pretty close. I've developed a very nice skull and crossbones to...
The skull and crossbones is chef kiss emoji.
It's attached to everyone who ends up murdered at some point in the story. I'm sure we'll post a picture of this, don't worry.
I think, you know what? I'm going to be that guy. Yeah, I'm going to post a picture of it to our Patreon. That's patreon.com/IDEOTVpod.
But, yeah, so I guess we should try to condense this down.
You need an idea what we're talking about besides the fact that there's a couple of guys who, I don't even know if we've said it. Nero Wolfe is a detective. So is Archie Goodwin. So yeah, maybe we should do some plot in 60.
All right, so here comes the world's most impossible plot in 60 seconds. Here's a song.
Nobody knows if you finish or not. You got 60 seconds to give them a plot. Plot in 60 seconds.
All right, you have the unenviable task of attempting to condense this book's twists and turns into 60 seconds. Meanwhile, this is the first book I've literally had to read more than once to understand for the show.
Just to get the plot down. If I were smarter, I would just read the Wikipedia plot summary, but I'm not smart, and I worked hard on this, and I'm proud of it. So, without further ado.
Begin.
Nero Wolfe is a private detective whose gimmicks are that he's very rude to everyone, drinks a lot of beer, and never, ever, ever leaves his brownstone apartment in New York. Luckily, for his clients, he has a confidential assistant named Archie Goodwin, who's a wisecracking tough guy, and his gimmick is that he's extremely horny. Archie is our narrator, and what happens is Mr. Perry, an executive at a business, would like to hire Mr. Wolfe because a business envelope with $30,000 that was sitting in a business desk for business reasons has gone missing, and the main suspect is Clara Fox, for whom both Mr. Perry and Mr. Goodwin instantly have the hots. Also, the detective office has been visited by a real cowboy who is talkative but confusing and is there to meet some people who are owed a debt because years ago, in cowboy days, these people helped break a dude out of jail, for which he promised them half his money, and it has come to light that he is now hella rich and hasn't paid nobody nothing. And so who brings this to light? It's a dead dad who ran into him in the war after cowboy times. And whose dead dad is he? But that of Clara Fox. So plots are colliding. Cowboy gets shot. Who shot Cowboy? Rich guy is in from out of town, but is very important man. How collect money from important man? Rich guy has assistant with hots for Clara Fox. Who hook up with Clara Fox? Another dude owed money, get shot. Who shot this dude? Nero Wolfe, big brain. Realize only man knew Cowboy there must shoot Cowboy. Digs more. Phone calls. Games of poker darts. Many bottles of beer. Only man who could have known Cowboy left was Mr. Perry, who used to be a cowboy back in cowboy days. And got money from rich guy, but never paid anyone else. Mr. Perry, very bad man. Tries to shoot Nero Wolfe. Gets shot and killed by rich guy. Archie takes blame. Clara Fox goes with dead rich guy's assistant. Archie gets a raise. The end.
Very good. Very, very good caveman-style plot in 60 seconds.
My brain just broke halfway through putting that together, and all I could do was, like, bang nouns against each other.
So, in case you were wondering why I had to draw a complicated, pattern to make this all fit together, that's why. Because essentially you're told the story of not one, but two people who have secret identities, and then there's one character that fits into two stories that seem like they're going to be overlapping, but end up not overlapping, but they kind of are. And it's just, it's less of a mystery and more of a jigsaw puzzle.
I think that's fair, and what I was hoping before we read this is, okay, great, I'll be able to, like, have all kinds of genre fun, because Jay loves a good classical mystery, he loves a good locked room mystery, he loves, like, all the rules of the game, and I'll be able to say things like, hey, Jay, did this one play fair? Did it give you all the information you need to solve it along with the detectives? And, like, after reading it, it took me a long time to put it together, even though half the book is one person stopping everything to explain the state of things to another person.
Yeah.
And I can't ask any of those questions.
I would say, honestly, this book does play fair, and it does give you the clues. It's just the style of the book is so distracting that you don't realize that you're getting it. You know, and there's a reason why Agatha Christie didn't have, her most colorful characters narrate her stories, I would say. And it's because that in order for this kind of stuff to work, you need somebody kind of explaining things in simple language.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Archie Goodwin, more colorful than Nero Wolfe, proclaims famed podcaster J.W. Clever Wisecrack Friedman.
Not linguistically. If this book was narrated by Nero Wolfe, it would be unreadable to start with, because, like, no man on the planet talks like Nero Wolfe. He's very fond of
piffle, my good man.
Yeah, exactly. These very archaic kind of idiosyncratic turns of phrases. I'm trying to think of some good examples and I can't. But yeah, there's just a lot of. I mean, he talks like Poirot, except it's not supposed to be due to broken English. So it's supposed to be due to sophistication.
So. They don't do it in this book. I am relatively certain that I remember Archie describing him as a very big fellow, specifically by calling him a man who weighs an eighth of a ton.
A third of a ton.
A third of a ton?
Yes.
Okay, so now that's heavy. An eighth of a ton would not be particularly notable.
Yeah.
So never mind. So here's one of the moments where Nero gets wolfy, if you will. He never leaves his apartment. If you read a lot of them, it starts to seem a little pathological.
Yeah.
Like, reading this whole thing in 2019 is very, very different, I think, than reading it in 1939.
Yes, and he must tend to the orchids.
Yes.
He must tend to the orchids, Hastings. The little orchids, they require much care.
He cares very much for orchids. He is a virulent misogynist in a way that probably played a little more comic before lunatics started driving their cars over people who wouldn't sleep with them.
Yeah.
But here is how he talks, anyway. Great hounds and Cerberus! He was about as close to a tantrum as he ever got. Don't need to eat? In heaven's name, are you camels or bears in for the winter? This is because some of the suspects have to be kept in his brownstone because he cannot leave his brownstone. And he's ready to eat, and he's very regimented about when he would like to eat. And they're like, well, we don't need to eat. And he just loses his mind.
And he makes a distinction between, we cannot dine as I wished at 8. We must eat.
Right.
Which means, I guess, eating at any time other than what he had planned on.
I think it means partly that. I also think it means you don't dress for it, and you might have to talk a little bit of business.
Yeah.
And it'll be... less of a fancy occasion. There, like, if you're wondering, hey, is this the kind of book where everything that gets eaten gets described to you? Ding, ding, ding. Yes, it is. Is it also the kind of book where unexpected guests mandate a conversation about how to stretch out the previously planned food to accommodate more people? Ding, ding, ding. If that's your fetish, this is the book for you.
Yeah, I kind of felt bad for Nero at one point because he definitely was really looking forward to eating a tenderloin and has to tell his cook, well, you may serve it in morsels if you must because there are now 5 of us. Mm-hmm. And the cook tells him, well, we have chicken and mushrooms, we could make soup for everyone else. And he says, no, if there are hardships, I must share in them too. So, I mean, at least he's a good guy.
That's basically verbatim.
Yeah.
And wow, way to step on my dramatic reading. But
sorry.
That is one of the most dramatic moments in the book, is him debating with his cook and legitimately getting angry that his cook would suggest he be a bad host, even though all he does is mouth off to and talk down to everybody in his house at all times.
Yeah, I was so busy while reading this book, trying to figure out what was going on, that I took very few notes. And one of the only notes I did take was, cool, a ruder American Poirot. And that's it. And I mean, it's like, Poirot is a dickhead, and I'm going to be talking about him a lot because this is a Poirot novel. I don't care what anybody says. But he is a dickhead. He's pompous. He definitely thinks that he's smarter than everyone else, but he's also exceedingly gracious and has good manners and is very polite to people that aren't close to him. Whereas Nero Wolfe will just straight up call you a fool the first time he meets you.
Right.
It's a slightly different vibe, I guess. I also get the impression Nero Wolfe has a quite less impressive mustache.
Oh, I believe he's clean shaven canonically, but I don't really know. It's actually kind of one of the things I really like about these is, even though there was a fairly successful A&E series made of these, Timothy Hutton as Archie Goodwin doesn't substantially change my image of Archie Goodwin. And pretty much any of your irascible, heavier character actors would make a just fine Nero Wolfe, thanks.
Yeah.
So you can cast it all you want, and it doesn't actually cause any mental static, I don't think.
It's interesting that you said Timothy Hutton doesn't change your impression of Archie Goodwin, because I can't read about anyone named Archie without imagining a redheaded guy with a checkerboard on the side of his head.
Oh, well, yeah, that's how they had him dressed.
Yeah. Oh, okay, great. So lots of sweater vests.
It only ran 2 seasons. Anyway, I hope we've just launched many of your pens into some truly searing Riverside /
Riverdale, my friend.
Riverdale, whatever, / Nero Wolfe / Archie Goodwin crossover fix.
What about Archie meets Poirot?
It'd be like, wow, you're so much less cool than my boss. Piss off back to Belgium, Frenchie.
But you see, Mr. Andrews, the France and Belgium are two different places.
Tell your story walking with your getaway sticks.
One of my
Pound leather on brick, friend.
One of
I
my
love the
favorite
way he
moments
talks.
from any of those books, which is also recreated very faithfully in the show, is at one point Hastings is trying to get Poirot to do something, and he says, "I don't know." He says, "Today seems like a good day for perhaps the trimming and the pomading of the mustache,"
Man,
implying that it's an all-day activity, which I really like.
might not be an all-day activity. It just might be the kind of thing that once you've done it, you really don't want to do anything else. Because then you're going to have to, like, admire. There's probably going to be one, hair out of place that's going to need to be plucked or trimmed.
Yeah.
And by the end, you just kind of probably want to, like, lie back, pop some Belgian bonbons, watch a little Belgian Netflix.
I think he drank a lot of wine. I know he wasn't a beer guy like old Nero here. Nero, if he were around today, Nero would be wickedly into craft beer. Like, he would be the craft brew dork that, like, has to lecture you about, well, this barrel-aged sour comes from blah, blah, blah.
Maybe. Not to anticipate one of the games that I'll probably now skip, but...
Oh, damn it. I'm sorry.
He does...
I'm ruining everything.
He does reveal at one point, because he's talking to an English lord, and he offers him some beer, because Nero just sort of... He's what I would call a maintenance drinker. He just sort of drinks steadily and to no visible effect.
It's true. He never gets drunk in this book.
Yeah.
But he never stops drinking.
Right. And I think that's why it's beer. So he can just sort of maintain, man. But he's constantly drinking beer. And when the Lord asks him, well, what kind of beer? His response is American beer, period. Potable, period. And I was so charmed by that because now I'm thinking, okay, it's 1939. I don't even know if Budweiser was a thing at that point.
No, that was like Hams or Schlitz or something. Rolling Rock.
So he's just slugging back what would come to be called macro brews and losing no sleep over it, feeling no pain. I think he would be the kind of guy who invites you into his gracious home and says, perhaps you, like me, would like to sit down with a Coors beer.
A Genesee Cream Ale?
Yeah.
Perhaps? Okay, let's move on. Let's do high points, low points.
Oof.
High points are high,
And the points are low.
high points.
Low points, get ready to go.
All right, so we're going to talk about the parts from this novel that we liked, the parts we didn't like. We're going to go high, low, high.
Yep.
That's how we do it. All right.
All right.
Why don't you start us off?
Okay, so this is, as we've talked about, narrated by a wisecracker. And not all of the wisecracks land, but the ones that do really do. So you get moments like, if you want to wait, I said, there's a place in the office to hold the back of your lap. And it's explicit that even the person he says this to shoots him a look like, I have no idea what the fuck you're talking about, Archie Goodwin. And I kind of like that, because what's the point of talking like a jive talker if it's not confusing the bejesus out of everybody you encounter?
It's a good point. I think I kind of agree with that, too. And it's kind of similar to my high point, which is he doesn't just talk to characters like this. He talks to the reader like this.
Yeah.
So you get paragraphs, or chapters in this case, that open like this. When I leave my waking up in the morning to the vagaries of nature, it's a good deal like other acts of God. You can't tell much about it ahead of time. So Tuesday at 6:30, I staggered out of bed and fought my way across the room to turn off the electric alarm clock on the table. Then I proceeded to cleanse the form and the fizz and get the figure draped for the day. By that time, the bright October sun had a band across the top fronts of the house, across the street, and I thought to myself, it would be a pity to have to go to jail on such a fine day.
Ah, the form and the fizz, how they must be cleansed for the day.
Yeah, and the figure.
Yeah. That one's pretty good, I think. Well, you got to cleanse one and then drape the other.
Yeah.
Specifically in that order, because if you drape first, that's a That's a cumbersome cleanse, my friend.
And not very effective.
No.
Okay, so low points.
Yeah. I alluded earlier to the fact that reading this in 2019 is very different than reading it in, when it was written and published. There are some positions staked out that I personally am not completely in love with. Because I'm a complete asshole, I'm going to read you one of them. This was a moment that I really, really didn't like.
Oh, I bet it's the same one I was just about to read. Let's find out.
So this is the antagonist, sort of frequently buffaloed but basically friendly cop character, Inspector Kramer.
You're literally about to read the sentence I had highlighted.
Right. Kramer took a puff and knocked off ashes.
God damn it.
I said I'd show you some cards. First, there's the background. I'd better mention that. You know how it is nowadays. Everybody's got it in for someone else, and half of them have gone cuckoo. When a German ship lands here, a bunch of beep go and tear the flag off it and raise general hell. If a beep professor that's been kicked out of Italy tries to give a lecture, a gang of fascists haul him down and beat him up. When you try your best to feed people that haven't got a job, they turn communist on you and start a riot. It's even got so that when a couple of bank presidents have lunch at the White House, the servants have to search the floor for banana peels that they may have put there for the president to slip on. Everyone has gone nuts.
Yeah, ditto.
This is not a political program that I find myself in great agreement with.
Yeah, no, me neither. And, I was going to give you the whole Jews isn't a bad word thing. But as you mentioned before, now that I think about it,
I don't know if Rex Stout knew that.
Yeah, and anytime I hear someone not Jewish say Jews, or say refer to me as a Jew, I get a little upset by it. I feel like that's one of those things that it's okay for us to call each other, but maybe not you. The other one that you beeped was a slang for an Italian person that is just a straight up racial slur.
And again, the book is not about bad Italian people. The book is not about bad Jewish people. These are bad words placed in a character we are at best mixed on.
Yeah,
so,
it's to provide background flavor for this character who's a blue-collar, working-class white guy, and that's just how they talked back then, and yada yada.
But, the overall political perspective is not one that I loved. And that particular thing I just read was, again, a bit of a low point.
Yeah.
Which I guess we share.
Yeah, I mean, I guess my first low point is just ditto, because literally, I have the book open to that exact page, because that's what I was going to read. So, I don't know that I can really add to that beyond the fact that I also think that the way Clara Fox gets talked about is pretty unseemly at times.
What do you mean, Jay? Could you possibly mean that the first 20 pages of this book are the most male-gazy bullshit I've read in a long time?
Yeah, that's pretty much what I mean. I don't have any highlights, but yeah, she's an attractive young lady, and boy, they don't let you forget it.
And when Archie meets a lady, so it's worth maybe dwelling on this. Actually, I'm just going to say that this is my second low point. I liked this very, very little, and since it's all very, very front loaded, it made the book real hard to get any traction in. In the first 20 or so pages, he meets a number of women, including Clara Fox. Every one of them is described in terms of whether or not they made him, Archie, want to have a sex in them, right?
That is a good point.
And several of them then have conversations where they say things to him like, well, of course I don't like Clara Fox. She's attractive and I'm plain. And even though the author tries to hang a hat on it by saying, I was surprised by her frankness, it's just not anything that I personally want to read, nor anything that I suspect anybody else fucking wants to read.
Yeah, there's a secretary character who literally is like, well, I don't like Clara because I want to have an affair with my boss, but obviously he's interested in her because look at her and look at me, and she's so much more pretty than I am, and how will I ever get to have an affair with my boss with Clara around being pretty? And It's just, it's really
I-
unnecessary. And you know what it adds to the plot? Nothing.
Not a fucking thing. And that's not even touching on the fact that Wolfe is himself a notorious misogynist who will not basically allow women into his house unless he had to, and absolutely will not allow them to do horror of horrors, that thing where they spend the night under his roof. Not with him.
Yeah.
Not with Archie. Not with Fritz, because they all lived there together.
Yeah.
In the way of men.
Yes.
There's also a guy who possibly just lives on the orchid floor. I don't think it's ever specified, at least not in this
He's
book.
never really comes or goes. He's just always there up in the special orchid room.
He may just be an orchid man. But there's a little disquisition in this that he gives about what he thinks women are good at and for, and it's straight Reddit. Yes, that's the kind of Reddit I mean, on the page, and it just makes you realize how just poisonous and awful this garbage always was.
Cool. That must have been one of the parts I wasn't paying much attention to because I didn't remember it. So that's good.
Oh, but it's even better because completely unlike dudes on the internet today, he doesn't dress up his personal distaste with a lot of flowery language and bullshit posture. Oh, wait, sorry. I got that wrong. I put a not in there. I didn't mean to do that.
So my low point, second low point, I guess, is that I had to draw a chart to figure out what happened in this book. And the moment when it did click that, these two characters are actually the same person, and the mystery clicked, I was like, oh, wow, this is pretty clever. This is well done. However, I'm not entirely sure that having to read a book twice means it's a good book.
My high point is that you had to draw that particular diagram to understand this book. That fills me with happiness because I'm a jerk. But it really is a marvelous diagram. So
I'm real good at whiteboarding.
You're real good at whiteboarding. That's a man right there. That's the work of a man right there who's used a whiteboard to get a job.
Many. I can flowchart you whatever the fuck you want.
Damn.
Yeah, so I guess my last high point then, if we're going to end here, was that I did really like, and this is very, very strange for me to say, because it's written in something that I don't normally like, which is kind of an I-dialect style. Uh-huh. But there's a part where you mentioned earlier where basically the entire book goes on pause, so Clara can present a letter that her father gave her.
Oh, God, that was a high point?
Yeah, and for me it was. And it's about 20 pages of a letter that this old rootinest, tootinest cowboy in the West wrote home to his wife to tell about his adventures. And I just, for some reason, I really enjoyed the way it was written. So, yeah, I'm a weirdo, whatever.
It was a little bit like, I've talked about this before, when you go back and reread the first Sherlock Holmes story, about a quarter of it is just a cowboy narrating his adventures in Utah.
Yep.
And this felt very much like that. I think that's, to me, because I've read a lot of Sherlock Holmes and I haven't read very much Poirot, why the scaffolding around this seems so much drawn from Holmes and not drawn from Christie.
I mean, I think if we're being honest, like the classical kind of 1920s, 30s parlor room mystery, no matter what franchise you're talking about, there's a lot of similarities, for sure.
What?
I mean, it's a very formulaic form of writing, and it's one that I find incredibly entertaining, so I don't mean that as a put-down, but it is what it is, I think you could find from this, you could probably compare it to just about anything else in the genre and be relatively accurate. I was just kind of amazed at the physical similarities between the characters, I think, is what really made me think of Poirot, for sure.
Fair. So let's take a break, and we'll come back, and we'll play some deadly, deadly games. Games of deduction, games of detection, games perhaps even of deceit and dissimulation.
Games to stimulate the little gray cells, Hastings.
I'm going to push the button for another beer.
Welcome back to I Don't Even Own a Television. We're doing that thing where we talk about books, and it's the second segment. So we're about to play some games, and we're going to start off with the most detectiveness. I don't know, clue-solving, puzzling segment in podcasting history.
It's the most pompous segment in podcasting history.
Very true. This is dramatic readings, or the readings dramatique, as I call them.
Oh. All right, I'll kick us off here. I'm just going to give you a heaping helping, a prime slice, a full blast of purist Nero Wolfe, just letting the world have it. Kramer looked disgusted. It can't be all. It's either too much or not enough. You've said enough to make you a material witness. You know what we can do with material witnesses if we want to. Yes, I know, Wolfe sighed. But you can't very well lock me up, for then I wouldn't be free to unravel this tangle for my client. And for you. I said barely possible. He sat up straight, abruptly. Barely possible, sir. Confound all of you. You marquises that need protection. You hyenas of finance. You upholders of the power to persecute and defame. And don't mistake this outburst as a display of moral indignation. It is merely the practical protest of a man of business who finds his business interfered with by ignorance and stupidity. I expect to collect a fee from my client, Miss Fox. To do that, I need to prosecute a claim for her. For a legal debt, I need to clear her from the false accusation of larceny, and I fear I need to discover who murdered Harlan Scoville. Those are legitimate needs, and I shall pursue them. If you want to protect your precious Marquis, for God's sake, do so. Surround him with a ring of iron and steel, or immerse him in antiseptic jelly. But don't annoy me when I'm trying to work. It is past 1 o'clock, and I must be up shortly after 6, and Mr. Goodwin and I have things to do. I have every right to advise Miss Fox to avoid unfriendly molestation. If you want her, search for her. I have said that I will answer no question regarding her whereabouts, but I will tell you this much. If you undertake to invade these premises with a search warrant, you won't find her here. Wolfe's half a glass of beer was flat, but he didn't mind that. He reached for it and swallowed it. Then he took the handkerchief from his breast pocket and wiped his lips.
Chug, 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 chug.
Well, sir?
Well, sir, I demand to speak to your manager.
I just super realized, that well, sir, I was basically picturing the Big Lebowski.
Oh, you're right.
Throughout this.
Your war is over. The bum's lost.
Condolences!
It is. You're right.
He was also fantastic, that actor, in a little documentary about the Obama presidency called Blazing Saddles, when he proclaimed that somebody had just uttered some fine classical frontier gibberish.
So I'm going to veer from that into something that I find incredibly entertaining.
And I'll remind you all that the other thing that he did was reminded us that we had all fought dicks.
That's true. We had all fought dicks.
Speaking of which,
I'm going to remind you all that I have the brain of an 8-year-old boy and read a whole bunch of shit where detectives are referred to as dicks in rapid succession, because nothing makes me laugh more than reading the word dick in funny situations.
If you thought it got heated when we were discussing whether or not this had anything to do with Agatha Christie, you have no idea how heated it got when we were trying to decide who was going to get to read this little section.
I glared at him, fixed the door, and led him to the office. He went across and stood in front of Wolfe's desk. I got the car, Mr. Wolfe. It's in the garage, but Archie didn't say anything about bringing a dick along with it, so I pushed him off. He grabbed a taxi and followed me. When I left the car in the garage just now and walked here, he walked here too. He's out on the sidewalk across the street. Indeed. Wolfe's voice was thin. He disliked after-dinner irritations. Suppose you, introduce us to the dick first. Where did you meet him?
It's always best.
Yeah, it is. Consent. It's important. Fred shifted his hat to his other hand. He could talk to Wolfe without getting fussed up, but I must admit that there often enough was reason for it. Fred Durkin was as honest as sunshine and as good a tailor as I ever saw. That's tailor like with an ER, not an OR. But he wasn't brilliant as sunshine. Warm and cloudy today and tomorrow. He said, well, I got to the garage and I showed the note to the guy and he said, all right, wait there, and he'd bring it down. He went off and in a couple minutes a man with a wide mouth came up and asked me if I was going for a ride. I said I'd never seen him before, but I'd have known he was a city feller if I'd have had my eyes shut and just touched him with my finger. I suppose he was working on something and just looking under stones, so I answered something friendly. He said if I was going for a ride, I'd better get a horse because the car I came for was going to remain there for the present. Wolfe murmured, so you apologized and went to a drugstore to telephone here for instructions. Fred looked startled. No, sir, I didn't. My instructions was to get that car and I got it. That dick had no documents or nothing. In fact, he didn't have nothing but a wide mouth. I went upstairs with him after me. When the garage guy saw the kind of argument it might be, he just disappeared. I ran the car down on the elevator myself and got on the street and headed east. The dick jumped on the running board, and when I reached around to brush a speck off the windshield, I accidentally pushed the dick off. By that time, we was at 3rd Avenue, and he hopped a taxi and followed me. When I got to 10th Avenue inside your garage, I turned the car inside out, but there was nothing there but tools and an old lead pencil and a busted dog leash and half a package of Omar cigarettes and the dick is now across the street? Yes, sir, he was when I come in.
Oh, don't stop there.
Oh, you want me to keep going?
I think
Do you want the D?
I think the dicks should keep on coming.
The phone rang and I took it. It was Saul Panzer. I listened and got his story and told him to hold the wire and turn to Wolfe. Saul, from a pay station at 2nd and Madison, there was a dick playing tag with himself in front of Miss Fox's address. Saul went through the apartment and drew a blank. Now he thinks the dick is sticking there, but he's not sure. It's possible he's being followed, and if so, should he... I can't do it. It's possible he's being followed, and if so, should he shake the dick and then come here, or what?
All right, can I jump in?
Yes, because I can't do it.
So that was Archie, and here's Nero's response. Tell him to come here. By no means shake the dick. He may know the one Fred brought, and in that case, they might like to have a talk. So yeah, that was the most juvenile segment in podcasting history.
Shake the dick. I knocked the dick off. The dick was playing tag with itself.
It's just a great time to mention that my mom listens to the show. It was my mom's brother's collection of these books that I first read as a kid. Sorry, Mom. You like it says on those very smart people's tattoos. Mama tried. It's not your fault.
Hey, that's also a really good Merle Haggard song.
I think that's what the tattoos are referring to, my man.
I never thought about that.
Or I wonder if it's the other way around. If Merle Haggard was just up late looking at rockabilly ladies on the internet.
This Mercy Bullets has a great idea for a song tattooed on her back.
Ooh, the most dangerous callback of all time. Yeah, that's a new in joke for those of you who just started listening last episode, I think.
It's never going away.
You know what also isn't going away is other games.
Like which one?
Well, I'd like to ask you a question about your preferences, and which of them was at the top of your preference list.
Oh, I know this one. It's what is your fave?
What is your fave? What is your fave? When you're presented with a list of options, what is your fave?
All right, well, don't leave me swinging in the wind like a dick.
I shook the dick on 62nd. That's great. No, it's awful. Can you come bail me out of prison?
Yeah. Turns out you're supposed to do that at the urinal.
Yeah. So as we have teased out in past, this is a book of intricate plot lines interweaving. And fundamentally, it's a book of doubling. It's a book of doubles, right? What is your favorite double? Is it the fact that Clara Fox is in both stories? Is it the fact that Rubber Coleman is also Mr. Perry? So now he's the head of a bank he used to be, or the head of a business that does business things, but used to be Rubber Coleman, the head of the rubber band, or any other double that you can think of.
For me, it would definitely be Parliament Funkadelic. Both of which feature the playing of Bootsy Collins.
The Rubber Band Man.
Exactly, who had a band later called the Bootsy Collins Rubber Band, which sadly this book had nothing to do with.
Very little, anyway. Although this book is improved by a rousing funk soundtrack, and I actually know that for a fact because I listened to a little bit of Mothership Connection while reading this, and it went together like peanut butter and clams. Surprisingly tasty.
Wow, yippee-oh, yippee-yay.
Exactly. So my favorite was actually that Rubber Coleman had led the rubber band. And there's a long thing where they're trying to figure out who killed someone while on the phone. Because you heard the gunshot or ... Did you? And what caused the gunshot noise?
Oh, that would be a rubber band.
Snapped on the microphone. And I did not realize that had something to do with the book's title until I was texting Jay about something completely other this morning. And I was like, oh! And it blew my tiny pea brain, and I had so much fun realizing that the rubber band had maybe 3 meanings?
Yeah, it's 3 meanings in the book for sure.
Wow, that's so many more meanings than almost anything else in the book.
That's true.
Wow.
But no, I think in the book it would probably be the Percy Coleman is actually, Anthony Perry is actually Rubber Coleman. That took me a while to get. That was the connective tissue where I got to it the second time reading the book.
Yeah.
And it clicked, and I was like, oh, a lot of things make sense now.
Yeah, I mean,
because one of the first things that happens in the book is the cowboy walks in.
Right.
And he walks in as Anthony Perry, the businessman, who was formerly Rubber Coleman, part of the gang with this cowboy,
is walking out.
He's walking out after hiring Nero to, help, try to find the $30,000 and protect the reputation of Clara.
I actually had forgotten there was one more that I missed, which is,
but the part I was going to mention is immediately after that, the cowboy receives a phone call in Nero's office, goes outside, and you later discover that he's been murdered.
That's when he got murdered.
And that's when it clicked for me, was like, oh, they recognized each other.
That's when he caught a case of lead poisoning, see?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
exactly. And that does all get explained. I actually forgot that there was one more, which is that the Marquis, who's this English diplomat, the rich guy I talked about in Plot in 60, actually was the guy they busted out of prison back in cowboy days.
Yeah.
And I thought both of those two doubles, both the Perry, Rubber Coleman, and the Marquis or Marquis, but they're both acceptable pronunciations, or as I say, pronunciations. I looked it up. Was also a cowboy. I thought both of those were playing kind of unfair. I thought those were both a little bit of cheats, especially because the English guy was never described, I think, as having an English accent back in cowboy days.
He wasn't, but in the letter it is mentioned that he told them he was actually English. And
okay, so I just missed that. Okay.
Yeah,
right.
And that he would give them some land or something if they freed him.
Still seems a little, I don't know, man.
Yeah,
it still seems a little sketch to me.
It's one sentence. It's one sentence in the middle of this long, like John Galt length letter,
The only thing I liked less than that fucking letter,
which I liked,
was there's this incredibly long, like the cowboy gives this incredibly long speech, and he's just this garrulous, disconnected, gabby old man, and he keeps telling you about how hard it is to follow him. He's like, well, I talked to my calves like this back on the ranch, and they don't seem to mind. And no, I don't know why I just did him as my bad Maine accent, but whatever. But it's just almost impossible to parse and follow, and I do think that's deliberate. But a thing that I've been reading a lot of lately is Le Carré, and he's justly famed for how interviews and conversations both move the plot, reveal the plot, change character, reveal character, like all that at once.
Yeah.
And this doesn't do that.
This is kind of Grandpa Simpson.
So taking a break from a mid-tier Le Carré novel to bang through this one for a couple days was not my favorite experience of the week.
Yeah, I could see that. Let's see. Yeah, I got an idea. Let's do a most famous fan. Here's a song.
Whoa. Holy pants.
They're rich and they're famous, but they read books too. They're rich and they're famous, but they're only a little better than you.
So we don't do this one too often, but it's exactly what it sounds like. We're just going to try to think of who the most famous person is that's a fan of this book.
Yeah.
Other than us. I'll go first. Also, once considered one of America's great storytellers. Somebody else with an affinity for kind of pointless plots that just revolve around 1 second where everything clicks into place and you go, oh, I get it. And then there's not much else there. I'm going to say the one, the only auteur, M. Night Shyamalan.
Oh.
I can just imagine him reading some Nero Wolfe and being like, ooh, what if this, but with aliens?
Right. Ouch. Well, I'm gonna go much kindler and gentler. Though I would watch that, except then it would turn out like there would be some like incredibly pointless twist that.
Well, it turns out the aliens are actually Irish.
Oh, I hate that one. Yeah, like in Gangs of New York, that movie about the alien invasion.
Yeah.
This is not an anti-immigrant joke. I swear, I didn't realize as it was coming out of my mouth.
Oh, yeah, I didn't even. No, yeah,
No.
don't worry, I didn't catch that.
Nope. Okay, let me. We're gonna redo that. Like, what's the gentlest movie of all time, Jay?
The gentlest movie of all time.
What's a movie that absolutely positively cannot be misconstrued under any circumstance?
It's not really a movie, but there's always the Puppy Bowl.
Yes, exactly. That movie about aliens, The Puppy Bowl. Oh, thank God.
There you go.
I'm out of trouble now. Okay, so I'm struggling with this one. So this is a book about a reclusive genius who has a kind of leg man whose jokes don't always land and kind of goes out and about and does lots of stuff. I think I might be the most famous fan of this book.
I thought you were going to say like Julian Assange or something.
Oh, no. No. But clearly, just because, like most people, I like books that remind me of myself and a not particularly funny guy who needs things explained to him a lot, Archie really speaks to me.
Gotcha.
And we got writ up in The Onion not that long ago.
That's
We're
true.
kind of famous.
A bit of...
have-
if you're willing to use a very generous interpretation of said word.
I have been asked, are you Chris Collision at least 2 bookstores in the Bay Area?
I have one signed autograph. Well,
What?
No, several.
That's so cool.
But it's because they thought I was Jerry Garcia. Back from the dead.
Did you ask them for some heroin and then bore them with a incomprehensibly bad guitar solo for several hours?
Yeah, that's pretty much what I do on the weekends.
Did you know, so I just learned this from The Best Show. Did you know that real deadheads are extremely salty about people who only jumped on board with the inexplicable late MTV hit Touch of Grey? And furthermore, that they call those people disparagingly touch heads?
No.
True
I did not
fact.
realize there was Grateful Dead gatekeeping.
Oh my God, there is. For example, if you can dance with even one iota of rhythm, bam, you're out.
Man, it's hard. It's hard.
If you
It's
like
gateful, you might say.
If you like music with a backbeat, boom, hit the bricks.
If you like, showering regularly,
Oh!
not wearing tie-dye.
I kid. It's not for me. If it's for you, that's cool.
But yeah, anyway, let's stop making fun of things and let's go to break.
Oh, we do have fun.
Oh, we love to laugh. The shadow knows.
Oh no, we're in a shadow hole.
It keeps happening to me. Do a little too much of that shadow, you end up in a shadow hole.
I come over here, he's got twin 45s pointed at me, his collar's up all high,
And
he
I'm just
won't
going,
stop cackling.
Shadow hole.
And it's bogus because I clearly called the shadow. I was like, I'm the shadow. You're Doc Samson. Haha.
I'm not bronze enough.
Well, that's your problem. Just get out there. It's a sunny day. It's the one sunny San Francisco day we're likely to get this summer, so you might as well get out there, get that shirt off, get that tan up, get that glow up.
Get that glow up, yep. So, speaking of which, this is the part of the show where we recommend things we like.
Not only venom and spite, sometimes with sweetness and light, and we always end the episode by telling you about a thing we like. Recommendations.
All right,
Like
so
glow.
yeah, I mean, I was just thinking the glow up, but I guess I'll start us out. I'm going to recommend a controversial recommendation. I'm going to recommend a movie I watched recently that everyone shit on before it came out. I don't think many people actually saw it because they were too busy saying the trailers made it look awful.
Oh, it was the live-action Death Note.
It's actually very close to that. It's Alita Battle Angel, which I enjoyed thoroughly. It is a very campy, cool little sci-fi story. I guess it's based on a comic. And it's about androids, and one of them is a young woman android with large eyes that people apparently couldn't stop talking about for about a year and a half. And then, thus, to their detriment, did not watch this movie, which turns out is actually really fucking fun and cool, and directed by Robert Rodriguez. So I enjoyed it a lot. And I would recommend that you see it because it's out now on streaming and whatnot.
So, shut up, nerds, says J.W. Friedman. Choke it down, you'll actually like it.
Yeah, and you know what else? It doesn't matter what color they make Sonic's hands or whether or not he has teeth. That shit is always going to look creepy.
Oh my god. Bigger, blood drippier Sonic teeth. That's right, kids. Vampire Sonic.
Ooh.
It has to have been done, right?
Dude. You can Google anything Sonic. It has been done.
I meant canon Vampire Sonic, not did somebody draw
art.
scary, sexy Vampire Sonic?
I don't
because
know,
I know the answer to that
I
question.
know that you could go on DeviantArt and see a picture of Sonic the Hedgehog dressed up as Stone Cold Steve Austin.
Hell yeah! That's intriguing. Steve Austin, known for his speed.
Yeah, definitely.
Fleet of foot, Steve Austin.
Wore a knee brace for half of his career.
2 knee braces, the other half.
Yeah.
Anywho, I too have a recommendation, though I fear it will be slightly less controversial and a tiny bit more niche even than Alita Battle Angel. Yes, I'm going to recommend... Dung ding ding. Something I read on the internet this week.
Whoa.
And it is by our friend, Mara Wilson. And she wrote a piece called Proust's Madeleine, but for people who grew up with a single dad. And it was a rocket sled back into my childhood, despite the fact that no one grew up with less of a single dad than me. No, I grew up mostly with a single mom. Yet there were similarities. And so sort of poor kid food or, not standard hamburgers at every meal food is always, I think, fun to read about. And Mara does just a wonderful job of sketching kind of an entire life by focusing on these very narrow questions like, how does a dad with a whole pile of kids keep those fuckers fed? And it was a great read, and there'll be a link to it in the show notes.
Sounds awesome.
It was.
Amara always erudite and entertaining, and I'm really stoked to see her writing more lately because she's got quite a way with words. Keep it up. Come back on the show again sometime soon too, please.
Yeah, come back, Mara. We miss you.
We do. So let's move on to the things that we get sometimes in the mail.
A, letter B, letter C, letter D, letter E, letter M, letter G, letter, got a lot of letters.
So this is, well, I'm just going to read it. It's by MJ, and I don't think I've got to redact any of those because M was spelled EMM, which I can only assume is even better than the Electronic Frontier Foundation. It's probably like the Electronic Magistrates or something. And then just the letter J. And the subject line is, well, frig, parentheses, second G, close parentheses. Hi. I promise this is not a correcting your pronunciation email. While I was listening to your Duel to the Death episode, I snickered to myself every time you said the AI's name, and did a couple of internet searches when I got home from work. I wasn't risking this Google search at the office. See, I had a suspicion that there are regional differences for what frig means. Google seems to indicate that in the US, frig is just a minced oath. Something you say if you don't want to drop the F-bomb for whatever reason.
It's like fudge, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. But not describing a chocolatey, thick
it's
food
like,
product.
What the fudge? Or, man, frig that.
Yeah, so what does it, what word is it replacing?
Friggin'.
And what word would that be replacing?
That would be replacing fuck.
Whoa! Gotta earn that little E next to us on iTunes.
Exactly.
In Australia, frig is a word meaning, usually female, masturbation. When written, it's usually a misspelling of fridge, leading to the hilarious, to us, 1950s refrigerated trucking company, Frigmobile. Oh, that is hilarious.
So you gotta stop by the old Frigmobile?
Well, I was thinking like, hey, you want to take a trip over to the bookmobile? Oh, no, chum. I'm on a different errand this day. To the Frigmobile. As a kid, I'd also crack up when I read books about Scandinavian mythology. Some books would call Odin's wife Frey or Freya. Others would call her Frigg, F-R-I-G. Today, I learned that this is because I-G in Scandinavian languages is pronounced A-Y. So Thor's mum's name isn't as giggle-worthy as I thought.
No, you could still giggle at it.
So I guess what I learned overall is that people are going to use the word frig to mean things other than lady wanking, but I will never not hear/read it that way. Thank you so much for the show. I'm so glad my friend hooked me up with your podcast. She was right. You guys are awesome. Emma, fake last name, and included a picture of a great big convoy. Yep, a big 18-wheeler truck that just says Frigmobile on it.
Shit, and that just reminded me of my original recommendation that I wanted to recommend. I think right now it's still $5 on Steam. American Truck Simulator. I'm not joking. Get that game. You drive a big rig around. It's almost virtually in real time. You get penalized for going too fast or breaking the law. And you basically drive a truck from one place to another, and you deliver things.
But why?
Because you can listen to podcasts while you do it.
This reminds me of when I was moderately obsessed with one or another of the worst life simulator games, and my friend who I lived with expressed infinitely gently to me that it was a little frustrating to watch me tend a garden and do a video game where I manipulated a little 4-inch robot around a house to clean the house instead of, say,
Cleaning the house.
cleaning the house.
Well, see, here's the thing. I'm never going to learn how to drive stick. Let alone with a fucking trailer hooked up to it. But I can drive very slowly from Fresno to Bakersfield while I listen to a podcast. So,
Damn, from Fresno all the way to Baco.
yeah, it's good stuff. It's good stuff. Worth the $5.
We got a great big convoy, and we're running through the night straight into your ears.
Yeah, sometimes you even get an articulated trailer, man. It's hard to change lanes with those things.
That sounds rough.
Yeah. So, you know what isn't rough is visiting us at Patreon, where you can help us out, help us keep the lights on, and provide you with quality information and entertainment, like talking about truck video games and
Truck video games, we get this question occasionally because Patreon doesn't do a great job of surfacing this fact, but the main thing that we give you, the listener who supports us on Patreon, which is a monthly subscription service, is if you subscribe at the $5 a month level, you will get a bonus episode every single month. And Patreon does a crummy job of letting you know this, but do you only get access to the stuff that we make after you hop on the old big rig IDEO TV pod fun? Heck no.
nope, you get them all.
You get them all. And we're pushing episode 40. So that's about 40 hours right there. There's a bunch of weird little extras because sometimes we go completely nuts.
Yep.
And put up other stuff up there.
I might look up to see if there's another long section in this book with a bunch of dicks in it.
Hell yeah.
You never know.
Yeah,
So-
I personally have a pretty big backlog that I need to get to when I get back from vacation. Sorry, kids, I'm going on vacation. But I've got a pretty big backlog of stuff I just want to read to it because it's fun and it amuses me to do so. And then do things like search Guns N' Roses Coma Pinball soundtrack and lay that down as bed music.
Yep, we're creative.
Yeah.
So check that out, patreon.com, IDEO TV pod.
But if you want to reach out in other ways, we encourage you to do so. We, in fact, demand you to do so. Send us an email at idon'tevenowntelevision@gmail.com. If you want to have fun with other people who also listen to the show and you can tolerate Facebook, you can do all those things in the I Don't Even Own a Television Fun Time Party Pit. Just search it on Facebook. You'll find it. You'll answer a couple of questions about not being a dingus, and I will say, yes, accept this person, and then you will be in a community of like-minded folks.
Who post all sorts of cool things.
Is it just about bad books?
Mostly, but not really.
There's a lot of pet threads.
There's a lot of pet threads, lots of just random stories about crabs.
Yeah.
Yeah, that kind of stuff.
It's just a pleasant time with good folks to while away a little time on the internet in the time we have left.
Yep. So those are things you can do. I suggest you do them.
Right, you can rate us and review us on iTunes. That's always fantastic. The best thing you can do, if you've got a friend, tell them about the show. Then you have one more thing in common with them. And that thing is thinking, that guy doesn't sound as much like Tom Servo as he thinks he does.
But until next time, we're going to get on out of here. And so please remember,
Crack the case, but do not crack the crab.
rides the crab Hastings.